Welcome everyone to our presentation today on eProcurement 101. Let's go to the next slide. So today we're going to cover several things. We're going to go over what is eProcurement, how to access the iSupplier and online bidding portal, how to register so that you can do online bidding, how to view bids and solicitations, how to respond to bids and solicitations, and then we'll open it up for any questions that you might have on this presentation. So we are the contracting authority for the procurement of goods and services for the city of Chicago. We work together as a team and our customers to guarantee an open, fair, and timely process and establish, communicate, and enforce superior business practices. Next slide, please. So eProcurement has been around for a little while, since 2017. It is part of our financial system in the Oracle Financials, and it allows you to bid using web technology, and it is a full-service resource for vendors doing business with the city of Chicago. All of the DPS bids, RFPs, and RFQs are electronic and advertised through eProcurement. I do want to let you know, if you are associated with a delegate agency, eProcurement also has been in place for a number of years. The process is the same. However, the way you bid for them, in the sense of the kinds of documentation that you have to provide, may be different, and you will need to talk to the delegate agency departments and not to DPS. Although the underlying technology is the same, there are differences in the way the system is used between the two different types of bids. Next slide, please. And in order to utilize eProcurement, your very first step is you need to be a registered vendor in our iSupplier portal. Once you're a registered vendor, you will be able to view and respond to bids. You can view orders and payments and invoices that are submitted, past and present, and you can update your company information, your contacts, address, phone, and email. And we have a resource guide to assist vendors with transitioning to the iSupplier portal and the online bidding process. This is our eProcurement microsite, which is a how-to manual for eProcurement. And the way you access this is you go to www.chicago.gov/eProcurement, and that will take you to our microsite. Next slide, please. And one of the things that we take seriously is your information security. All information is encrypted using the HTTPS protocol for secure communication. We cannot see your bids prior to bid opening, just like we could not see your paper bids. We can't see your electronic bids, and neither can any of the other bidders. So your bid is secure. Next slide. So in order to utilize the iSupplier portal for eProcurement, you need to register, and for first-time vendor registration, there is a process where it will be two different processes, actually. One, if you have a city vendor number, and one if you don't have a city vendor number. So if you have a city vendor number, you want to click on the Request an iSupplier invitation button. This will direct your request to customer support. If you do not have a existing vendor number, you're going to click on the new vendor registration button. And you do need to know whether you're a new vendor or old vendor, meaning that if you have done business with the city or not. One of the things to know is that if you've done business with a sister agency, that does not count as being a City of Chicago vendor. And if you're uncertain, you can, we'll talk about how you tell at a later slide. But what is needed at the new vendor registration? You need to submit a PDF attachment of your W-9 and then your legal business name, the company that you're registering must match the company name on the W-9, or else you're going to encounter registration delays. Next slide, please. All right, so here we are at the eProcurement microsite. This is the website that provides all things iSupplier and eProcurement for you. Next slide. We're going to go through the different functions that are available on this website. So here is the vendor registration, and I want to walk through quickly the orange navigation bar at the top. You have home, login and registration, current bids and solicitation opportunities, online training materials, delegates, and help. So if you click on login and registration, it's going to take you here, and this takes you through the registration process. As I mentioned earlier, there were the two separate processes existing of City of Chicago vendors, and then the other if you are brand new. So if you're existing City of Chicago, you should verify that you don't have a contract with one of these, the city colleges, CHA, Park District, etc. You can go down the list. And in this case, you can click the orange button, and you will need to provide your full name of the business, email address, phone number, and your FEIN number. Next slide, please. If you are a brand new vendor that has not done any business with the city, you might, let's say you're only a Chicago Public Schools vendor, but you want to start bidding with the city. You can click here, click the orange button here, and provide the information requested, which is the same information as requested for the other vendors. Next slide, please. Then we go to the next menu, which is current bids and solicitation opportunities. This is what you'll be going to most of the time when you have already registered. And you can look for things in the buying plan, but when they actually get put out for bid, they will all appear here. All of our bids have switched over to the eProcurement system. There are no more paper bids. So you can click on the orange button to see them, and then if you can also see pre-bid and pre-submittal conference attendees by clicking the link below, and non-eProcurement bid and solicitation opportunities is still there as a link. You won't find any for us. However, just FYI, there are from time to time opportunities available that are not what's called non-DPS procurement. So there are some departments that have special contracting authority granted to them by City Council for things that are not your usual procurements. They tend to be revenue generating opportunities for the city, or things that are utilities such as natural gas, electricity, etc. And special programs such as like the Divvy bikes and Lyft bikes and all that would go through this link here and not be on eProcurement. So just you can check both links. Next slide, please. So when you click on the current bid opportunities, this will take you further. You will see that there's a bid opportunity list, which comes out and is updated on a weekly basis. And then there's additional links here. The eProcurement bid opportunities will take you to a separate page, which we'll show you shortly. and the paper ones don't exist anymore. But if you see any of these non-DPS bids, they will appear there. Next slide, please. Okay, so then this is part of the website for the City of Chicago Department of Procurement Services. This is our main site, and there's a lot of information here. You can see that there's the various icons here with Get Started. We have bid opportunities, awarded contracts, the certified directory. The main icons are the most popular items. Contract administration at the top, which you see here. You can see awarded contracts, bid tabs, bid information about various things. This is all available. This is not part of the eProcurement microsite, but it's also available here, and you should be aware of it as a reference for your general knowledge about doing business with the City of Chicago. Next slide, please. All right, so current bids and solicitation opportunities. When you click the orange button, next slide, please. This will take you to what we call the abstract page of active bids and solicitation. So the abstract page will provide a tabular listing of everything that is out for bid that you can respond to at this moment. And you will see that there is the department name, event, program model, solicitation number, spec number, solicitation title, ad date, supplier date, response date, supplier response due date, protected markets, deadline for questions, details. Let's quickly go through what this means. So the department name is who is putting this out for bid. I mean, DPS is putting it out, but it's on behalf of a user department, which is listed here. The event is actually the contract type. So you see that there's commodities, construction, delegate agency. So you will see generally what kind of contract it is under event. Program model is only applicable if it's a delegate agency bid. It is not utilized for DPS bids. Solicitation number, also known as RFQ number, is a number which indicates the solicitation number of what you're bidding on. It's an important number. If you see something that you're interested in, write this number down, because you're going to need it when you log in and look for the solicitation to respond to. The spec number is another identifying number for the project. Very important number as well. Solicitation title. So this is a brief description of what is out to bid. You will see that at the beginning, it will have the specification number and followed by the description. The advertisement date is the date when this is first advertised in the Chicago Tribune and that it first appears in the e-procurement system. The supplier response start date is the same as the advertisement date. It should be simultaneous, because as soon as it hits 8 o'clock in the morning, the open of business, you should be able to respond to the solicitation. The supplier response due date is otherwise known as the bid opening date. This is also an extremely important date. This is your due date. If you do not submit by then, you will no longer be able to submit. Protected markets. This tells you, although sometimes you need to look on the solicitation document itself, whether it is something like a target market or reserved for small businesses or medium-sized businesses. This will let you know whether it's one of those. Deadline for questions. This is at the date when you must have any questions related to the scope of work into DPS if you want those questions answered in a clarification or addenda. If you are asking questions about the scope, please do pay attention to this. Next slide, please. So the abstract, once you click on those eyeglasses, you will see a more detailed description of the solicitation. So you will see that there is an area called Form Details, and it'll say status is active, and it'll say document PDF file. The PDF file is very important. This is how you can view the solicitation before registering or before you decide to go in and open it and start bidding on it. You can basically pick, this is where you basically pick up the bid, look at it, and see whether it's of interest to you. The information below repeats the information you just saw on the previous page. Other details and pre-solicitation meeting. So this is also very important. Many bids will have a pre-solicitation conference. So if you have questions, then this is the opportunity to ask. You will also hear a presentation from the user department on the scope of work, other things that are good to know about the bid. It's strongly encouraged that you attend the pre-bid conference, pre-solicitation conference, and instructions for how to attend are given here. Usually there is a pre-registration required. So far, most of these have been virtual. There are some that are in person, which is coming back after post-pandemic. Next slide, please. So on this screen, you will see, actually there's three different screens you see. The first one is the login screen for iSupplier. Once you go to the login on the portal, it will take you here. It'll ask you for your username and password. Your very, very first time that you register, you will get a temporary password, and you will be directed to change it to your permanent password upon your first login. Once you log in, you will see this Oracle Applications homepage. On the left-hand side, you will see main menu, and there will be two links for you. You're going to see City of Chicago iSupplier portal with invoice creation, City of Chicago online bidding. Depending on what you want to do, you will click one of those two links. And here, the last third of the screen, you will see what happens if you click on the iSupplier portal with invoice creation. Will take you to this area where you have the ability to look at, you see there's home, orders, shipments, admin, and finance. So this is where you would be able to see your invoices and your payments. You can track that if you are an existing vendor. You can see where if you're having questions as to where is the status of an invoice that has been submitted, you can see whether it's been processed by finance and is awaiting user department receipt, etc. These are very, very handy for researching the status of work that has been performed and invoiced by you. Next slide, please. Okay. You have this screen now talks to the work list. So the work list is on the right side, and it does give you various things that may be pending your attention. And if you start bidding, there may be items that appear in your work list. And when they do, you want to click on them and look at them and see what needs action. The last third of the screen is under the Negotiations tab. What this is if you click under City of Chicago Online Bidding, then you go to the Sourcing folder, then you want to go to Sourcing Homepage. This is how you bid on contracts. And you need to get into, this will take you to the Negotiations page, which you see on the bottom. And notice there is a search. It says search open solicitations with title. You would have to put in the spec number there. Another way is to also, in the place where it says title, click on the arrow and put in a number. That is the RFQ number or the solicitation number. You can look in two ways. You have two ways to find what you're looking for to bid. Go ahead and click. I'm sorry. Next slide, please. This is a better view of the Negotiations tab. So the response number is the number that you receive when a solicitation is saved. It's your number for your response. You need to write it down. It's response status. If you have an active bid, there's draft and resubmission required. So you want it to always say active. If it's not active, then you don't have a bid that will register for us at bid opening. Draft bids mean just that. You're still working on them, and if it's draft at the bid opening time, it's not going to count. Resubmission required is a status that will happen if an addendum is issued after you submit. You do need to go back in and acknowledge that addendum. If you don't, your bid will also not count. Supplier sites are not used by DPS. Solicitation number we talked about before. It's the number for the RFQ. Title is a description. Type. It's all RFQ. Time left gives you the number of days open before it's due. Monitor, you can see how many other people have expressed interest or are submitting responses. You can't, you won't be able to see who they are, but you can see others that are coming. I'm sorry, unread messages. If you have online discussions between you and the procurement specialist, they will appear here. Next slide, please. So responding to a solicitation, as I mentioned earlier, you can do this by two ways, title and number. So title, you want to put the specification number. If you pick number, you want the RFQ number. And once you put them in here, you can click go and it will find your solicitation. Next slide, please. So if you do, whoops, can you go back? Thank you. RFQ number. So this is what you would see if you put in the RFQ number and then you hit go. You need to then click select, there is a radio button, put your mouse in there and click it, and then hit respond. This is how you start to create a response to a bid. If you don't do this, you're not going to get into the bidding area. So this is another very important screen to note how to get in. Click the checkbox and then hit respond. Go ahead, and then we'll go to the next slide. Upon clicking in, you're going to be presented with terms and conditions, and you need to acknowledge them by clicking, by first filling in the checkbox, I have read and accepted the terms and conditions, and you click accept. Then this will put you on the takeout list, and you will be acknowledged as somebody who has started to express interest in this bid. So go ahead, next slide, please. And then once you have started responding to the bid, you're going to come to two tabs. You're going to have header and lines. So the header tab is where you're going to provide information and also attachments. Lines is where you're going to put in your bid pricing. We'll talk separately about RFPs and RFQs because they are done a little bit differently. But you want to start with what's called the requirements section. The requirements section is both a place for the city to share information with you, as you see at the top. And then it also is a checklist for you for various required documents. So some of these, proposal page completed. Yes, no, you should, as you go through and upload everything that is required, you want to indicate yes or no. If you are applying for bid incentives, for example, you will need to indicate that here. There is not validation here. So if you, let's say, yes, I uploaded it, but the attachment is not there, the system is not going to complain. However, when the procurement specialist then goes and opens and really examines your bid, and they see that you said yes, but there's no document, you will be deemed non-responsive. So again, this is for your benefit, and it's a reminder to you of what's required, but you need to make sure that all of this information is uploaded, because the system, again, does not check if you actually did what you're saying you're doing here. Next slide. Okay, when you finish the requirements section, you go all the way to the bottom. This is where you have to add attachments, all the various attachments that the bid wants you to upload. You need to do down here. There's an add attachment button. When you click it, then you'll see this little drop-down screen, and it should say file. Then you want to give it a title that describes what you're uploading, and then you use this file selection box by clicking browse, and then when you're done, hit save, and then it will do your upload. And then you want to repeat this as many times as necessary for each file that you're uploading. Next slide, please. After you do all the required attachments, then you want to get to the Lines tab. So you want to click on Lines, and it's going to present you a screen that looks like this. So there will be a description of the line. There is a quote price, which you will need to fill out. There is a unit of measure. There is an estimated quantity by the city, and the system will automatically calculate the extended prices. It will not update the pricing as you fill in each line, so it won't do a running total. When you've submitted all the lines, then it will give you a grand total of all the extended prices, and you wanted to, at that point, check your math against the system's math, make sure that all matches prior to submission. Next slide, please. Along the way, you want to save and save often, because if the system does crash, which is rare, but it's more likely that you will run into network connectivity issues that will knock you off. You want to be able to come back and continue where you left off, so go ahead and save along the way. Next slide, please. So here are some items to note. Responses must be submitted through your eProcurement. Paper responses are not allowed. Addenda. So you want to acknowledge in the system, and some bids will have separate acknowledgement forms. It's best to acknowledge in both places. At some point, the the separate scanned acknowledgement forms will go away, but at this point, many business units are still using both. So please acknowledge both. Responses, you want to fill out the PDF form, scan and upload as attachments. And then I want to say that depending on the different contract types, more and more are moving towards moving all their lines into what I just described to you on the Lines tab. However, there are some where you will provide a total price in, you will provide your pricing on spreadsheets. And in this case, you follow the, you submit the detailed pricing on the sheets provided. For RFPs, you will generally have a compensation schedule, some other form for you to submit pricing, and you will still have at least one line. It will be what we call a dummy line. In that case, you will enter 1 penny, and then you enter your actual pricing on the sheets provided. So this way, the system is happy that you entered a line on for pricing, but the true pricing is elsewhere. Groups. Some solicitations provide for bidding by groups, where you can bid on one or more groups, but you don't have to bid on all of them. If you want to enter a no bid for a group, you need to enter this small number, 0 with nine zeros and then a 1 for all lines in the group. What this does is you can't enter an actual 0. The system won't allow it. But if you enter this number that's very close to 0, when it multiplies the estimated quantity by your price, it will still be 0. And that will be an indication to the procurement specialist that you are not bidding that group. If you need assistance during the bidding process, call the eProcurement Help Desk, 312-744-HELP, or you can email customer support at cityofchicago.org for assistance. They are available 8:30 to 4:30 during city business hours. Next slide, please. Okay, another item is online discussions. So online discussions is like an internal email system for eProcurement. This allows you to have to ask questions of the DPS procurement specialists. If it's questions related to the scope, you can submit them here. If you just have some process questions, you can ask them here. Scope questions will only be responded through the formal clarification and addenda process. Other questions about process, they can just respond here. Next slide, please. And when you click on the online discussions and takes you in, this is how it will look. You will see a messages area. You can click view message. We'll enter a new online discussion. Next slide, please. And then another item is acknowledgement of what we call addenda. The iSupplier system, Oracle system, refers to them as amendments, but addenda, amendments, they're the same thing. So you will see that it will say negotiation number, blah, 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 has amendments that require your acknowledgement. Do you want to proceed? So you do need to say yes. Please review and acknowledge them all. And look carefully to see what has changed before as you acknowledge. Go ahead and next slide, please. And then once you have acknowledged all addenda, it's going to take you, and you submitted all your lines, you did all your attachments, you're going to get to electronic signature. You want to make sure you've completed your electronic signature. If you didn't do this, your submission is still draft and it's not valid. Look for quote status of active. You will receive a confirmation email the next day at 7:30. After you do that, you must still check for addenda that might be issued. Because if you don't, the system will change your quote status to resubmission required, and that will not count your bid at bid opening. So make sure you keep following up. Next slide, please. Training materials. You can click on the online training materials tab for information. If you need assistance, there are presentations and videos that will show you the various steps, and each one is only perhaps 3 to 5 minutes long, so you can just go to the particular subject for which you need help and look for the materials there. Next slide, please. As we talked about earlier, there is a help desk with the information up here, 312-744-HELP, or customer support at cityofchicago.gov. I mentioned to you the training videos and documents that were available on the microsite. Next slide, please. All right, that brings us to question and answer. Before we start with any questions that we've received, I do want to say one last thing, which is please give plenty of time for this process. Do not wait until the morning of bid opening to start your bids, particularly if you've never bid online with us before. Your bid should be started at a minimum the previous day, and your registration, you need to allow at least 3 business days to get yourself registered before you even bid. So please don't wait to the last week before a bid is opening. As soon as the bid is advertised, we recommend that you get registered and then download the bid, look through it, and then participate in any pre-bids, and then submit get your bid at least ready the night before. You may want to click the final submit the day of, but do not wait till the day of. to start compiling all your material, because there is actually a lot of material that has to be filled out, and you may fill it out by printing out the PDFs and then filling them out, but you need to scan them back. All that you want to do ahead of time, and don't wait until 10:30 before bid opening. All right. With that, I'm going to turn it back over to Jackie, and she can read off any questions that we may have received during the presentation, and I'll be glad to answer.
Great. Thank you, Ben, for that great information. And let me just say, if you'd like to ask a question, feel free to do so in the Q&A panel on the right-hand side of your screen. Go ahead and click on that, Q&A. You will get a dialog box. Type in your question, press the enter key, and we will get that information. I know some folks put things in the chat. Some put it in the Q&A. I'm just asking if you use the Q&A area to type in your question. So I only have one place to go look to see if anyone has questions, and I can take them in the order that I have received them. All right, so I guess there was some confusion on how you start the bid process. I guess some people do it through a search piece. And I guess there is some confusion about that. I'm not sure what the exact question is, but I hope by you, Ben, if you would just give a few little, and if you need me to go back to any of the slides, I'm able to do that. But the person they've written about 5 different comments about how you start the bid off.
Okay.
To how they go to get the bid started.
Sure.
So.
Okay, let me speak to that again. If you can go back to the one that was the search slides. So that's after the vendor registration. Keep going. Keep going. Keep going. Okay, let's then go there, and then let's flip through them from there. More. Next. 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 Wait. Okay, let me stop there. So let's go back to that abstract page here. Here we are. So I want to say that a lot of people would like to say, let's click on the details. Next page, please. And then there is a login here. And a lot of people think that when you click login here, it will automatically take you right to the bidding for this solicitation. Unfortunately, that is not true. What you need to do here is write down the solicitation number or the specification number or both. And then, next slide, please. And next one, I think it's maybe 1 or 2 more. Another one. And this, perfect. Let's stop here. So how to get into the bid. This is very important. You need to take the information that you wrote down, and because all the things that are open for bidding, it appears that they're all here in this example, but they're not. When you log in for the very first time, this will all be blank until you then, I would suggest you go to number from that drop down, and then enter the RFQ number, and then hit go. that's how you would get into the bid. And then from there you would have to acknowledge the terms and conditions, and then you're in to the bid. But you must first look through the abstract, see what you want, write down the number, and then enter it here to search for the one, and that will bring up the bid that you want to respond to. Okay, next question.
Okay, there is a second question. If there are addenda or resubmission requests prior to the due closure date, will you get a notification from the system to your email, or do you suggest continually checking after your submission is complete, but prior to the closure date in case of additional information or a request for information?
You will get a notification through your email. There is also addenda are also advertised in the Chicago Tribune. Clarifications are not advertised, so you will need to check your email after you are you have submitted to make sure that there's no clarifications, because a clarification does not need to be acknowledged, but the system will make you acknowledge it. So even though there won't be an acknowledgement sheet that you have to sign and upload, the system will put your status back into required resubmission. So it is important to look for clarifications as well. So that is all notifying you by email.
Okay, and then the second part of that question is, do you need to register vendor or delegate agency to view the current opportunity?
You do not need to be registered to view the opportunities in the abstract page. So that's open to anyone. However, if you are interested in bidding, you must be registered.
Right? And that is all that I have in the chat area. I just sent some information to everyone too, of where you can find certain items for this presentation, the recording of this presentation, where those things are stored, just in case you want to go back and peruse it. I just sent that in the chat, so feel free to go in there and copy that information so that you will have it. Second of all, we are going to have our construction summit in the first or second week in February. So stay tuned for that. If you are interested in networking with our government representatives and or being a participant as far as a part of our matching program, keep your eyes and ears out for more information regarding the construction summit in February. If there are no other questions, and I don't see any new ones here in the Q&A panel, I want to thank our guest, Benjamin Pope, for that great presentation and sharing the information on how you can actually go through and the eProcurement iSupplier system and submit your bids and be a part of the process. Ben, if you'd like to say any further parting words, feel free to unmic yourself and do that now. And if not, what I am going to do is stay safe, stay well, and hopefully we will see you at one of our remaining. I think we have about 4 or 5 classes remaining. So feel free to attend one of those. or prepare for our new schedule in 2023. So stay safe, stay well, and we'll see you in February if we won't see you before then. Thanks so much. I think I got something new, so hold on. Oh, thank you for your time as well. Any other additional, Ben, did you want to say anything?
Thank you very much for attending.
All righty. And thank you, Ben, for giving that information. And we will see you next time. Have a wonderful rest of your day.